Hello, hello, hello. What's happening, people? I welcome all ladies and gentlemen, all ghosts and ghouls, and of course, all webheads to the underworld, my domain, my channel, and to Marvel's New York City. This is yours truly, Ghosty speaking, and today I am here to talk about the one, the only, near perfect video game that is Spider-Man 2. So, with that being said, if you haven't played the game for yourself and don't want to know all the contents within, then I think now is probably the best time for you to click off the video, because this is your major spoiler, spoilerish spoiler warning. Or stay a while and get spoiled. I don't care. Regardless of that, if you are here, sit back, relax, probably should grab a snack, because I tend to talk a lot. So, now that we're all here, there's really only one thing left to do, and that is, actually start talking about it. So, here we go. Spider-Man 2. Holy shit. What a phenomenal experience. Not just as a video game, but overall, an immersive Spider-Man tale. Or, in this case, Spider-Man. But from start to finish, me and my expectations were both blown away. I made an entire series of the main story on my channel that you can watch now if you want, nudge nudge. But I was in awe the entire time. By this point now, I've 100%ed the entire game and I've seen everything that it has to offer. And I could proudly say, from the gameplay, the story, the music, even down to the smallest details, it is truly amazing. And, well, spectacular, if I may. I do have my issues and my gripes that I will get into, but I really will say, Insomniac has created something that I think that they should be extremely proud of. Well, maybe not everything, but you get what I mean. It's taken me a while to actually collect my thoughts and really try to piece together what I was going to say for this video. Yet here I am, and I am still rambling. But I am damn sure going to try. So, first things first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the big, hulking, gooey monster in the room, and that is the main focus of the game, and what we'll be talking about the most. As much as I wanted to wait to talk about this as an encore, or somewhat of a climax of the video, I really can't because it made me climax myself, and that is the main story. Which is told beautifully, by the way, so strap in. So, to set things straight, and just putting it on the record, I absolutely loved it. What I wanted, like I've said in previous videos, was a Spider-Man story, and that's exactly what they gave us. Again, they made something that they should be incredibly proud of, and I would do anything to take them 19 inches once again for the first time. But unfortunately, I can't. So I'm here talking about it, rambling on and on. But seriously though, first of all, I think balancing out two different Spider-Men and having their stories go along with also sharing the main one is a responsibility in itself. No pun intended. But I think Insomniac really handled it pretty damn well. And balance is a key theme of the game and just an important component of the character in general. And that's exactly what they gave us. Both Peter and Miles struggling to balance out their lives, their personal ones, and the life of being a hero, and what comes with it. We see that on perfect display throughout the entirety of the game, no matter if it's the main story, side missions, even the smaller details of things and references. We see it all. We see a different side of Peter that we haven't seen before, with him at his darkest point. And of course, thanks to the symbiote, which I loved, and I will get into that. But thanks to the symbiote, it embraces it to the extreme. And Miles has to come into his own and do even more and become bigger than anything that he's been previously. One of the best things, in my opinion, and something that I will forever love about Spider-Man and his mythos, is that struggle. That balancing act of heroism and his personal life. And how they somehow always end up blending and mixing together. In this game, that happens and much more. And I also think that it highlights more of how the secret identity really peeks through the mask and gets in the way of that task of being Spider-Man. Not only because it's already a core component of the character, but because in this story, it hits deep. It digs deep because it's within the protagonist that we play as for the game's entirety. We see the paths that these characters have taken already up until this point, and now we're seeing it play out. And we see how these characters deal with it, and they have to move forwards and be better. It is a hell of a Spider-Man story, and goddamn, it all falls into place very, very nicely, if you ask me. And holy shit, I could praise it all day. I don't know what it is about Spider-Man, but them sad, real depressing, that real heartbreaking shit. Them storylines always get me, and they are always so goddamn good. This time around though, we do get it with Miles as well, and even though it is fresh and exciting, it's the same with Pete too, regardless whether or not we've seen it a billion times over already. Which brings me to my next point, which is something that I was looking forward to the most, and now after completing it, one of my favorite parts about the game in general, and that is Black Suit / Symbiote Spidey, aka Bully Lowenthal. And off the bat, I'm going to give that man his fucking flowers because, well, he deserves it. After playing through this game, him and Tony Todd are among my favorites, if not my favorite voice acting job that there is. Not only because I am a fanboy and I am a little biased, I think they both did incredible. All of his lines felt real, they felt true, the emotion was there, and they all felt genuine. And of course, they were all powerful, including his symbiote lines, which I loved his voice. And when I watched that gameplay footage way back when, which realistically, it wasn't that long ago, but I did say, and I'll say it again, it is raw, it is guttural, and that hatred, that rage that Pete has, really just forces itself out. And now seeing it, it goes way past just the voice acting. It's in Pete's mannerisms, the gameplay, and the story itself. Which I do like what they did. Usually the symbiote Spidey story goes along the lines of them bonding, birthing Black Suit Spidey, yada yada. But over time, there is a gradual growth, or I would say more of a gradual decline, as Spider-Man worsens into this darker Spider-Man that we all know and love. And I think Insomniac executed it pretty damn well. I think that the growth, or that gradual consumption, should have lasted longer, but that I also may be at fault because I finished the game in a span of an amount of time that I'm not going to admit, but it may be my fault. But regardless, they do show that growth of the symbiote consuming him more and more as he allows it to happen, because he just feels so powerful. And like he says himself, it makes him a better Spider-Man. Which that line is so bittersweet because I love it so much, yet it's heartbreaking. But he's now capable of doing everything that he hasn't been able to do before, thanks to the black suit. And honestly, after playing through it and getting off every time I hit them joysticks, I understand. I get you, Pete. I really do. I was real into it using that. You watch any of the videos that I have the Spidey suit or symbiote suit equipped, find out. I was real into it. But back to what I was saying, just because I want to mention this. If there's any story that has a symbiote Spidey at play, I think it's best to visually show off that shift in character. And the game does do that. The black suit does change, and you could say it's because of the meteorite, which is definitely possible, but I'm just going to pretend like it's both. I think it's better that way, or maybe that's how it was intended, but no matter. It's still cool regardless. But like I said, it's more than just that. It's his mannerisms, in the way he speaks, and even down to the smallest details, like dropping someone to the ground when saving them, rather than gracefully placing them like they're a damsel in distress. His character does change over time, and they show it. And even though I mentioned that I wish that overtime change did last a little longer, I can't lie when I say I do love when he's aggressive, because it's fresh and it's really cool to see Pete in that way, and I just like edgy shit, but also because of some of the things he says. Obviously the gameplay is more aggressive, and so is he in his voice and what he says. Like that line he says to Harry, like, why don't you pop some more pills and say what you're really feeling? That line is fucking crazy. Or mid-boss battle, you're beating the shit out of the lizard, and he's just like, this is why your family left you. Fucking nuts. As you can see, I love it. But I think I'm spending too much time talking about just that. But again, that is a huge part of the story, and pretty much just talking about Peter in general. But before I do move on, I want to clarify one thing, and that's this. A big thing about Spider-Man, as the saying says, with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And that is held up in every story, every narrative about Spidey that there is. But Pete is human, after all. He has always had this pain, this trauma, this hate, rage, and negative feelings, these emotions. But he uses them as a reason to get up and keep moving forwards, and to fight for what's right. But now when the symbiote's involved, and he wears the black suit, not only does it make him faster and stronger and more durable, etc., it embraces them feelings. That hate and rage is unleashed. Just because he feels like he could, as well as the suit amplifying them emotions. But I'll do the same song and dance again if I have to. It does not make him evil. Just so you know, if that makes any sense. No matter what the game tells you. Even if it tells you the complete opposite. He was asleep, and there was no consent. There was no consent whatsoever. He was conked the fuck out, and it took control. Seriously though, them adapting the early origins of the black suit, with the whole purpose of it being taking control of Pete's body while he was asleep, didn't expect it, but it was fucking awesome regardless. But now I think it's time to move away from that. Let's transition from Spider-Man to Spider-Man. And actually, now that I'm saying that, let's actually talk about Spider-Man versus Spider-Man. Because, well, holy fuck. Peak gaming experience. Seriously. That fight was something that I wanted the most out of all of my wants and needs for this game. And wow, they delivered. I tried preparing myself for that as much as I could, and still, I was not ready. Nothing could have prepared me for that. That is exactly what I wanted and more. I wanted a battle between the Spider-Man. A battle of morals, a battle of justice, fighting for what's good and what's wrong. A clash between them. And we got that. And to end it off with Pete ripping away the symbiote and freeing himself from the bond. Fucking incredible. That was the cherry and a whole lot of other shit on top of the cake that we already had. Actually brilliant. The whole entire mission is amazing. Because we also have Kraven fight beforehand. It's like battle after battle after battle. That shit was so good I had to use it for the thumbnail. Even though it was kind of spoilery. But so be it. And at that point in the game, I was convinced that Venom wasn't even in the game anymore. Or wasn't going to show up. Because that entire sequence of events was so damn epic that it felt like endgame events. But boy, I'm glad I was wrong. Because it got better and better. And never stopped. And one last thing I do want to mention about the fight. And before I do, I have no idea if this was intentional or not. I don't know if anything's been said about it, because I haven't seen a single thing about it. But obviously throughout the game, we're playing as Pete and Symbiote, Spidey, of course. And like I mentioned, we have all of these symbiote abilities that we unlock and start to use throughout the game. But once that fight comes around, in the final stages of it, Peter starts using them same symbiote abilities, but against us. And even though it is Miles versus Peter, in the player's perspective, it kind of feels like we're fighting a twisted reflection of ourselves. Like we're face to face having to fight against our past mistakes and actions and our misdeeds and having to fight to make it right. And I have no idea, again, if it was intended or not, or it's something cool that I noticed. No idea. And it may just be a schizo thought, but I thought it was at least worth mentioning. Especially if someone out there agrees with me. Please let me know. But we can finally move on from that. And like I said before, go from Spider-Man to Spider-Man. And this time, Miles Morales. Like I already said, I think they did a great job balancing them out. And I do think, and will admit, that they might have sidelined Miles a tiny bit. But only that. A teensy tiny bit, because again, we had to focus on the primary and main Spider-Man, as well as the whole narrative being around healing the world, with Peter and Harry also they rejoice, and of course the symbiote, yada yada. But I do think what Miles had going on was incredible, and it was important for his character. He had to come into his own and become something bigger than himself. And even though they do primarily focus on the main Spider-Man for the story, that is Pete, by the end game, Miles takes up that role. So I'm really curious to see where they go next with it, especially considering what they've been teasing, but that's for a whole separate video. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the game does really highlight the secret identity peeking through the mask, mostly emotionally, and that happens a lot. That is a main component of Spider-Man just in general, but the game highlights it, I think. We see that anguish and that depression that Pete goes through, that dark path he goes down, and the burden he carries. Same with Miles, but again, like I've said, they deal with it in two very different ways. Miles has to stay in the light and stay true to himself, while Pete goes down that darkest path that we've seen. Miles has to learn acceptance and try to struggle with it going forwards, but in the end he does. They highlight something with Martin that I really like, about that mentality of not being able to forgive, but at very least able to forget, just to be better and do better going forwards. They literally, physically and figuratively, metaphorically, whatever, they leave the negative zone together and come out better, which is just poetic, I think. Again, that may not be intentional, but it is a very amazing set piece game-wise, and again, I think it's poetic. And endgame as well. He is the Spider-Man now, and these things must be done in order for him to be the city's protector. And now getting deeper into the Morales picture, we have Rio Mama's Morales, which we gotta love, as always. Same with Uncle Aaron, even though I do much prefer the take with the Prowler and him being the villain of the story. I get that we already had that in the spin-off, and he's now among the group of redeemed villains, so it's understandable. And we have Haley, which I will be the one to say it because no one else has the balls to do so, but it was a bold move making a deaf girl his love interest. But don't get me wrong, I think it makes it that much more special, because I am a fan. It makes everything much more personal and genuine between them. Also, her knowing that he's Spider-Man adds a great deal of significance, and we all have to remind ourselves from time to time, it is Spider-Man, and with love interests, that doesn't always, work out the best. So, deaf or not, anything can happen. But, yeah, we'll see. But I was going to mention Genki next, but between her and him both, I can transition off a little into side missions. With hers being first, I think they did it in such a clever way, and the controller and haptic work was brilliant. Bravo. I will say though, I will admit, I did not do shit they told me to do, and I spray painted so frantically and like fucking lunatic, but it still came out so beautifully somehow. I am either an artistic or autistic genius, or probably both, and that is most likely the case. And as for Genki, the mission that comes to mind are the spider bots, which first of all, if Insomniac knew any better, I would think they would immediately turn them and make them into a piece of IRL merchandise to sell, because they would make loads of money, with myself being a victim. But on the other hand, game-wise, you all might crucify me for this, but I think it was such a waste. Don't get me wrong, I do think that they should have had a Easter egg to the films in one way or another, somewhere in the game. But not of this degree. This is the collectible mission of the game, and we get a payoff that is 1, not canon, 2, something that will probably never show up again. I would have much preferred, at the very least, something that is canon and builds up on Insomniac's world. For example, I think the first had a perfect collectible mission with the backpacks, where every single one of them had history to it, sharing the lore and story of Peter's experience of being Spidey up until that point. Whereas this time around, it doesn't amount anything to that. And again, I would have preferred something else, even if it is collectible or not. Maybe something like a continuation of Taskmaster's story, which is also completely left out. Maybe even a new villain, or an old villain as well. Doesn't matter. But again, I think this had a lot of lost opportunities and lost potential in order to, make room for an Easter egg that didn't need to be of such high regard that it had. But that's just me. So now going into the side missions that I am quite fond of. Firstly, a villain I wanted to see most that we did get was Mysterio, and of course all of his Mysteriums. And ironically, the biggest illusion of Mysterio was Mysterio himself. Which, Mysterio is one of my favorite villains among the Rogues Gallery that Spidey has, and I wanted to see Mysterio. I wanted to see that supervillain persona, and much more. We did get that character, but in the end we found out it actually wasn't him. It's just his shithead employees framing him for the crimes that they commit, which makes sense. And even though I wanted to, see him himself, it feels like we did get that up until the end. So I'm content with it. The character design, the incredible set designs, the voice acting, all of it came together pretty well, I think. And, I enjoyed it. Probably my favorite side mission, regardless of if it's a time trial or not. But unfortunately, by the end of it, he does change his ways, or is trying to at least, and then disappears in smoke. So, don't think he'll ever show up again. It's bittersweet, I know, but a man can only hope. But someone that will show up again, for damn sure, is Cletus Cassidy, aka The Flame, aka, eventually, Carnage. And normally, the birth of Carnage comes about with just the symbiote and Cletus Cassidy being at the right place at the right time, kind of like it's fate. And in this game, they build it up as the Crimson Hour, as a prophecy. And, it is literally fate. Which I thought was a beautiful way to keep the story going, as well as making up for Eddie Brock's absence, because Cletus and Harry don't interact, whatsoever. So, seeing them do that was pretty cool. I could see them trying to make this game the symbiote-centered game of this series. So it might be DLC, but if it's a third game thing as well, I wouldn't mind it. I will leave my faith in Insomniac. I also really like Yuri in the game, or Wraith, if you want to call her that. I think she was badass, and a really cool-ass weapon of choice. But moving on, because I'm spending too much time on everything. Sandman, actually really heartfelt mission. Sorry if I'm sidelining the stuff you want to hear, but I'm trying to get to the main point because this video is getting longer and longer. But yeah, Sandman, I think it was really cool. An actual genuine emotional side mission that actually got to me. A lot of missions got to me. Don't even get me fucking started on Howard. Oh my god, Howard and Find Grandpa. I've had Seabird on repeat since I played that mission, and oh man, don't get me started. All of them FNSM requests and side missions are all brilliant, by the way. I love each and every one of them, and it's so cool seeing, the friendly neighborhood aspect of Spidey. But back to Sandman. Good mission. It got to me, and also the intro of the game as well. Probably the best intro I've played any game ever. There are some strong contenders, but that's definitely up there. Amazing start. As well as Peter being a teacher, that was really cool, even if it only lasted 5 minutes. My man couldn't even get through the first period without being fired, which really sucks. But one last thing about the side missions, and then we'll get on to the main course. and that is about the vulture drones. I know that they had to give the web wings a use just beyond traversal, and this is that reason. And I'm not really the biggest fan of the side mission itself, but the payoff was absolutely worth it. We got Chameleon and his lair, which was all really dope. Chameleon is a very calculating and serious villain if used correctly, and honestly, I have all of my faith in Insomniac. Or really have faith in them for anything at this point. But I hope to see him probably in the third game, either as a side mission, but I think they honestly could utilize him as a major player, but we'll see. But yeah, they got me excited and can't wait to see what's next. Alright, and one more appetizer before the main course. Only because I realized that I haven't brought up MJ whatsoever. But come on, she's MJ. Mary Jane goddamn Watson. I think she's a much better character in this game, gameplay-wise and story-wise, only because now she has a lot more characterization towards her, and she plays a much bigger role than before, like hands-on too, which I think is better for her. And again, the gameplay missions that she was in were actually fun. I enjoyed them to the fullest. And they were scary, honestly, because you're not Spider-Man, even though the fucking taser packs a hell of a punch, more than the Spider-Man both. It was fun, yeah. Okay, but now I've talked way too much. Talking my ass off is my favorite thing to do. So, time for the main course. And that is the Great Hunt and healing the world. So, first up is Kraven, and he was a hunter in the purest form. It's pretty self-explanatory, but he wanted an equal. He was dying, and he refused to go out any other way than in battle. So, he tried to find an equal worthy of taking him down. And the end result was fucking awesome. But we're not there yet. But in the meantime, during the Great Hunt, he took down Scorpion, Shocker, Vulture, Electro, and maybe not Rhino. It's not confirmed or denied. But they're all dead. All of them are dead, thanks to Kraven. He went out and killed every one of them, which is fucking insane. They made him a legitimate, terrifying monster, an actual beast that no one could take down. Until, later in the game, you realize the difference in power and strength of who actually takes him down, which was fucking awesome. That battle was so fucking good, that whole moment, but we'll get to that. But yeah, it's not hard to understand. There's not much to really say about it. But it's crazy. He even tries taking down the lizard as well, which also didn't mention lizard. I just ramble on and on, sorry. But also not much to say about lizard. But again, he was really damn cool. That whole sequence of events of the sewer battle, having to chase him through the city to avoid Kraven killing him. All while Yuri Lowenthal is delivering that phenomenal voice acting. All of it is actually just pure ear and eye candy. I also did like seeing him outside of the lizard form as well, because we get characterization for actual Kurt Connors rather than just a lizard. And he's also the only one knowledgeable of the symbiote, so he knew the dangers and what it was capable of. Plus, I would have never expected in a million years that that's how he lost his arm in this iteration. Small world, huh? But speaking of arms, something that I wanted to see so bad, before moving on to the final topic, I do want to say this. I think it is a massive missed opportunity that they didn't make an homage to Kraven's Last Hunt, with Peter unearthing himself from the grave. It would have been the best QuickTime event in gaming history, and I stand by that. And even though we don't have that much influence from Kraven's Last Hunt, the name still stands because of you-know-who in the game. And that's going to be our final talking point to wrap up this video and this story, and that is going to be Venom. And oh boy, Venom was fucking nearly perfect. And God, it really does hurt to say that. It really does. But let me explain why I think so. I'll get this out of the way first. I loved him so much. The design, the voice acting, and that insane gameplay that we had and we were able to get was fucking incredible. It was insane, and I loved every bit of it. All of it. The only issues I have are the narrative ones, and that's it. Firstly, let's go back to when he's first created. Just like any Spider-Man story, Peter finds the symbiote, he bonds with it, and he becomes what he thinks is a better Spider-Man. Eventually, Peter rejects the symbiote and throws it away. And in spite and out of hatred of Spider-Man and Peter Parker, the symbiote finds a new host that equally hates Spider-Man and Peter Parker, coincidentally. And over their shared hatred, they bond, creating Venom. But in this case, it's kind of the exact opposite. The minute Venom is born, things get a little narratively tricky. Because I'm not sure if it was red herrings or not, but we're about to get into it. So, first of all, Harry becomes Venom immediately. But beforehand, we're swinging all around the city as Black Suit Spidey, and Harry is dying by the second. He is physically and mentally declining, and I think it would have paired beautifully if they highlighted this and paired it alongside his transformation and his descent into darkness, into becoming Venom. In the moment, I think Harry and the symbiote both were willing to fully embrace each other and reach their full potential as Venom, so that's what happened. But there really is no proper build-up, because they don't highlight Harry and that downward spiral like I've said. They show that resentment, and the story gives Harry reason after reason after reason to hate Peter. And in the end, he just wants him to join him, which I understand, because once Harry kills, or I guess once you or Venom, the player, whatever, once Kraven dies, Harry sees what he's truly capable of, and sees that he's able to accomplish that end goal of healing the world. And I think that does a lot, because without that shared end goal, there wouldn't be much reason for Venom to even be bonded in the first place. Well, besides Harry and the symbiote both needing to survive. All around, I just think it would have benefited more from more time. Even if it was slightly longer, they could have had the time they needed to fully develop Venom as a character and his relationship with Peter. And even the relationship between Harry and the symbiote themselves. Because even after him and the symbiote are one and the same, it's not fully convincing that they are fully together as Venom. Hell, the name Venom kind of comes out of nowhere too. He kind of pulls it out of his ass. It is a tremendous scene, but still. He says the "We Are Venom" line with a lot of like emotional weight and value, when in reality it has like none. They should have highlighted it at least a little bit. Maybe Pete could have been like, "Harry, this isn't gonna help. It's only gonna cause pain to you and the world around you. It's a parasite. It's only gonna poison you. It's only Venom," etc., etc. So maybe that's where Harry could have taken up the name and, you know, try to manipulate Peter like the symbiote did when he wore it. That could have been nice. You know, something along them lines. But, you know, we didn't get that. But it's alright. Cool name drop regardless. But one thing to remember is that this is Insomniac's Venom. It is a fresh take, it is exciting, and it is a new origin for this character. This is their origin, and obviously their Venom. So they had a whole playground to mess around with and an empty canvas to do whatever they wanted to. And I think I almost fell in love with it immediately. Because going back to that character of Venom, he is this dark and twisted reflection of Spider-Man, and that is exactly what we have and what we got. Even though it might have not had that hatred and rage towards Spidey all the way through, and we might not have had that narrative, I think they still mirrored him perfectly. Especially with that shared end goal between best friends, with Pete and Harry, of healing the world. By the end, they both go to extreme measures to do that exact goal. Just very different methods. And which of course we get that intense, epic conclusion of Spider-Man versus Venom. And it's even better, well, minus Miles' inclusion, because it doesn't really make sense gameplay wise or narratively, but you know, it is what it is, I guess. Can't change it, so. But the fact that we fight through the school grounds and Emily May Foundation is really poetic. And just to paraphrase, it might not be exactly what IGN said, but it really does feel like Spider-Man and a Spider-Man story. And overall, it is such beautiful storytelling. And if I can, I would take every one of them 19 inches again. And will. I definitely will. I probably made that joke already, but whatever. Fuck it. But then now that I do mention this, the moments that I was talking about how the game gives Harry reason after reason to hate Pete, it might not have hinted at that trope of Venom hating Spidey, but instead showing that there is a hatred in Harry, and showing that there is a darkness somewhere lurking. Just so when he does become Venom, and that moment comes, it makes sense to why he transforms so quick. And, you know, immediately, like I said. That, again, might be intended, might not, but that's what it feels like. And that does somewhat make it better, at least in my eyes. But I'm not going to talk about Venom non-stop because it already is a long video. I talked about him enough, but God, I fucking loved it. I really did. If you can't tell, besides my minor nitpicks, if you want to call it that, and some issues I have, I absolutely loved it. And I screamed 1,000 times over. More slimy than the symbiote itself, and I won't continue because that's just getting disgusting at this point. But speaking of symbiote, I will say the end game. We have kind of like a Web of Shadows sequel, like a remake kind of thing, and I don't agree whatsoever. A lot of people don't like this, like whole symbiotic city concept and what they do with the end game. I for one loved it, not only because I think it looks fucking dope, but also in Harry's eyes, that is his way of healing the world. The symbiote was once a healing agent that is the only reason that he survived, and as well as now that he's Venom, he's at his full potential. And of course, sharing this healing agent or sharing this symbiote would help everyone else, and in fact save or heal the world. And I also do want to talk about the comic elements added as well, like the spiral and all the references to Null. Even though they may not be necessary, I think it adds a level of depth to the symbiotes and just something for the fans to see and appreciate, which is exactly what I did. Seeing the spiral was really cool, even seeing the elements from King in Black, like Venom with wings. Even though some things may feel a little shoehorned in and just like crammed in there at the very end, I still liked it. I was screaming over it over and over, time and time again, and in the end I think it paid off. Even if that final act does seem a little like fan servicey or fan fiction like, I think it works because, well, it's just there. There's so many comic elements thrown in there for the fans, and if they get it, then they get it. They don't go too deep into the symbiote origin like Null. His name isn't dropped once. They don't talk about the home planet whatsoever, and they keep it a personal story between Spider-Man and Venom. Or when he just suddenly grows a pair of fucking wings. Do I think it's awesome? Hell yeah. But is it also completely unnecessary? Yeah. But from a game perspective, I understand why. Because, well, he is the conclusion. He is the final boss. So they have to make it something big, memorable, and something worthy of being one. So it's understandable. And in the end, I think it all works. Same thing with Anti-Venom, or Anti-Venom, however you want to say that. And all the things with the symbiote as well. Like, oh, like Scream. Holy shit. I should have brought up Scream when I brought up MJ. Because, well, you know, for obvious reasons. But holy shit. Scream was something. I did not expect that in the slightest. But that was gut-wrenching, that was emotional and heartbreaking. And during the battle, I was speechless. And I think I will remain the same during this video. Because, wow, not much to say. It's just, holy shit, that's depressing. But, yeah, Scream. I should have mentioned that earlier. I am so sorry if you waited so long to hear that. But, for Anti-Venom, or Anti-Venom, however the fuck, whatever, same thing. But like everything else I've talked about so far, this is Insomniac's canon, which makes them, you know, free to do whatever the hell they want with anything and everything, with this included. Again, it is a fresh take and their origin, their version, so it may not be the magic goop monster that Anti-Venom usually is, but instead it is a suit for Peter, which I really like. Not only because the way it's brought about with Mr. Negative, just like the comics, his power has an effect on the symbiote, and it turns that darkness into light, which in this case Peter physically embodies, which is pretty damn cool. It allows him to keep the symbiote abilities as well as keeping his, you know, conscious and sanity stable, which would probably help. But game-wise, it allows him to keep it post-game, and he even still has it by the end of it, which I'm not sure if they have anything in store for it, and I'm sure they'll get rid of it the minute they get a chance to, but we'll see. And it also visually helps tell that story and mirroring of Spider-Man versus Venom. I think it just goes and falls together well, pretty damn well, and I think the whole thing is told so beautifully and just poetically, and I really think so. I really do. And God, I fucking love that game. It ends with Miles taking up the mantle and becoming the one and only Spider-Man, while Peter is with MJ and May's house, and actually, for once, happy. Which I was so excited to see, and I'm happy for all of them. And I was content. I was sitting there content. Like, if it just ended there, all of it ended there, I was content. Obviously, I'm excited for what's to come, but man, I was fine with it. For the time being, at least. But obviously, again, excited for what's to come. We had the post-credit scene with Cindy Moon, aka Silk, coming in, or what I called her, because I couldn't think straight, Smooth, in my playthrough. We have Smooth coming in hot, which I will admit I think is unnecessary, but I'm excited to see how they play their cards with it. As well as the other post-credit scene with the G Serum, obviously teasing Goblin, as well as Norman asking Otto for the final chapter and whatnot. So, you know, we'll see how it all plays out. But as for this game though, I really couldn't be more thankful for being able to have the experience, as well as being able to play it and share it here on the channel. And still am talking about it. I truly love this game. After you do eventually finish it though, there is kind of nothing. Nothing at all. Maybe besides some of the same crimes that you've already prevented since the very beginning, but besides that, really nothing. The lack of post-game content and overall citywide activity and life, on top of no New Game Plus, really does suck. Like I said earlier, so does the lack of time that I think the game deserved and should have had to develop things even further, if possible, and again, maybe even make things better than it already is. And of course, I can't forget the literal abundances of glitches, the visual glitches, the audio ones, things that seem like they were forgotten about because they're still in the game, and things that could really ruin the most impactful and important scenes in the game. And of course, things like turning into a literal cube, which thankfully has gone over well with everyone. So there are some things that unfortunately bring the experience down, but in the end, I do think the game truly is phenomenal. Or like I said earlier, spectacular if I dare. But just look at the character that we're talking about. It is Spider-Man. The whole premise is when you get knocked down or run into any obstacle ever, you can always get back up and keep going, even becoming something bigger and better. And game-wise, I'm sure Insomniac will do just that. Even though this game itself was, and still is, pretty fucking good. But I'm looking forward to whatever the future holds, and I have trust and faith in Insomniac. But for this video, I think that's about all. I shared all of my thoughts, and I think I really got out what I needed to get out. So if you're here with me and watched this far, thank you very much. Leave a like, leave a comment, and of course, subscribe. It would help me and the channel out oh so very much. And I appreciate you, even if you're just watching, that is. And yeah, that's about it. So join the underworld, subscribe, and that's all. Ghosty, over and out.